much, Alex, for that vision. I'm not sure how I feel about being dreamt about so often in your dreams, but I'll take it as a compliment. That was a great vision. Thank you. Our next speaker is Debra Ehrenberg, and Debra has been, an incredible advocate for animals. She's for animals, but also the environment and other social justice issues. Most recently, she worked to protect and advance human rights as Midwest Regional Director for Amnesty International USA, and she's also served as the organizing director for the Rainforest Action Network. She oversaw grassroots activism, education, training, outreach, and online organizing. In the animal rights movement, Debra's worked for organizations like PETA, In Defense of Animals, and the Great Ape Project, and she enjoys bringing perspectives and lessons learned from multiple movements to the AR conference. And I also had the pleasure of knowing Debra for probably well over 10 years, and she's left the DC area, but I understand now she's going to be coming back and joining us here in the DC area. So it's going to be great to have another incredibly energetic activist here with us in DC. So let's welcome Debra Ehrenberg.
Saurabh's great, but he's a little bit taller than I am. Thank you, Saurabh. And I don't have great pictures like Paul did, but I also want to extend my gratitude to Alex and Jen and Michael and everybody who made this conference possible. It's always so wonderful to come and get my animal rights batteries recharged and learn so much about everything that's happened in the recent months and over the past year. So thank you all for being here and being part of that experience. I love that the theme of this year's conference is shaping the future of animal activism. All of us here play a part in writing that future, and this conference has provided us with the opportunity to talk about what we want to make of it. But we also know that the future of animal rights doesn't exist in a vacuum. Many other forces, some outside of our control, some that we may be able to influence, will help to shape that future. How we prepare for and respond to these changes will determine how effective we can be for the animals. So as I talk tonight about the future of animal rights, I'd like to put that in the context of the future writ large and take a look at how some of the forces that will have an impact on our movement in the not so distant future. The United Nations predicts that in the year 2050, just 38 years from now, likely during many of our lives, there will be 9 billion people on this planet. To feed all those mouths, Jason Clay of the World Wildlife Fund recently reported, we'll need to produce as much food in the next 40 years as we have in the last 8,000. All of this at a time when climate change is bringing about ever-worsening cycles of drought and flooding, when oil reserves will have started to run dry, and even the hardest-to-tap sources of fossil fuels will have started to wane. Of these 9 billion people, fewer than half will have access to clean, potable water. Paradoxically, the percentage of people living in poverty is declining for the first time in history. That means more people in more parts of the world living more affluent, resource-intensive lives and expecting to eat higher up the food chain. Deforestation, as well as climate change, will accelerate as people destroy centuries-old forests in a desperate attempt to find non-depleted soil, not to feed the hungry, but for massive monoculture plantations growing soy and palm oil for animal feed, fuel, and junk food to maintain the lifestyle of affluent countries. The distance between rich and poor continues to increase, further straining the social strata. If current trends continue, the population of the United States will rise to 438 million in 2050, from about 300 million today. And 82% of that increase will be due to recent immigrants and their US-born descendants. At the same time, the percentage of white Americans will drop to about 47%. If you're wondering why that's relevant to the animal rights movement, I urge you to take a look around this room. Take a look at the movement leaders who have spoken at conference plenaries, and ask yourselves whether you're seeing the movement, whether the movement that you're looking at in the present represents the diversity of backgrounds and experiences that will need to be relevant in the future. So what does all of this mean for the animals? Increasing affluence means that more people will want, expect, and have the means to consume animals as a regular part of their diets. This will pit humans who are living at the lower end of the economic ladder in direct competition with animal agriculture for scarce resources like water, land, and grains. We see a world where deforestation, human encroachment, and climate change will lead to massive die-offs of species and individuals, as well as significant reduction in biodiversity. In the US, as right-wing politicians and profit-driven corporations actively work to dissolve labor unions, we see recent immigrants who are working in the most dangerous jobs, such as meat packing and as farm workers, with less and less protections. In this rapidly approaching future, we can see clearly that the lines that divide one movement from another have less and less meaning. We need to recognize that reducing affluent nations' consumption of scarce resources and breaking the link between affluence and meat consumption is an animal rights issue. Stopping deforestation and working to slow climate change is an animal rights issue. Working in solidarity with poor people's movements around the world to increase access to clean water for communities, not for corporations, is an animal rights issue. Working in solidarity with movements for food sovereignty, so farmers grow plants to feed people, not cows or cars, is an animal rights issue. Working in solidarity with movements to reduce the disparity between rich and poor and to ensure that every worker earns a fair wage in conditions of safety and dignity is an animal rights issue. The timing couldn't be better for a conference that looks at the future of animal rights, because it's never been more important for us to look at that future and do what we can to shape it. The world stands at a crossroads. Down one path lies the continued destruction of this planet, wars over scarce resources, exploitation of the weak by the strong, and small movements working in a vacuum for small, pragmatic changes. Down the other path lies a massive movement of people rising up to work for a just and sustainable future. It's not just the future of animal rights that depends on our getting our message out there effectively. It's the future of the planet and the future of the 9 billion people who will soon be living here. I hope I haven't depressed or freaked you all out too much. Believe it or not, I'm actually feeling quite optimistic about the future. The increasing convergence of animal rights with other issues provides us with a really exciting opportunity to grow our movement and achieve real and lasting victories. But we have a lot of work to do here. It's not going to be easy. To succeed, we need a clear vision of the world we're working to create, the future that we want to see. And that's something for all of us to build together. We spend a lot of time talking about what's wrong with how animals are treated. And of course, we've got so much to talk about, and it's important for us all to be informed about these issues. But the thing that's going to help us grow our movement and really create change is keeping our eye on the world we're working towards. No movement ever caught fire fighting for nicer cages and gentler executions. No matter what our specific campaign, we must keep the focus on a just and humane world where all life is treated with respect. It's the vision of that world that will keep us going for the long haul. Once we have a clear vision, we can work on strategies to get there and messaging to help others see what a great place this world is going to be. We can work on messaging that doesn't hammer other movements over the head, but invites them to join us, demonstrates our desire to join them, and shows how our goals are bound up with theirs. As a movement, we need to start building bridges now and working at the intersections where animals' interests and other social justice causes converge. We need a strategy of inclusion and humility where we learn from and support other movements because we know it's in the interests of the animals to do so and because we know it's the right thing to do. We need to educate ourselves about all forms of oppression, learn the histories of other movements, and actively fight racism and classism, both within our movement and in our communities, so that our movement can grow strong and stay relevant in a changing world. We need to extend our compassion to humans as well as to other animals, and demonstrate how exploitation of the one contributes to the exploitation of the other. Above all, we need to maintain our sense of hope and commitment. We need to support each other so we can collectively generate the energy we need to make it through the long haul and shape a more positive future. To quote one of my personal heroes, Arundhati Roy, "Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing." Thank you.